Microphones. This is a $70 microphone, and this is a $150 microphone. You are hearing me speak currently with the $70 microphone. I had been using the Wave 3 for the past few years, but recently I moved into a new setup, and something became very obvious to me. My room isn't really treated, and I noticed that it started showing up in my recordings. So, like any rational human being, I started looking into something better suited for untreated spaces. And there was a microphone that kept catching my attention, the Fifine K688. Coincidentally, Fifine actually reached out to me and offered to send me over some of their gear for me to try. And of course I had mentioned the K688 specifically since I was already pretty curious about this mic to begin with. So I ended up getting one sent out to me, got everything set up, and in this video I'll show you how it performs and whether or not if it's actually worth getting. So starting things off, in the box we have the mic itself that has the filter and shock mount already attached, which also comes with a pretty neat cable along with some included adapters and extra band replacements for the shock mount, which is nice. You can also purchase the option that comes with a desk arm for just $13 more, but I didn't get this one. I had seen some other reviews and the uncertainty of the arm itself, but I can't say too much of anything myself as I haven't actually used it. Plus, I was also kind of curious and wanted to see how well the mic would do without an arm by attaching it to the Wave 3 stand that I had already owned. I did have to end up buying this little adapter, which was like $5, but so far it seems to be holding itself pretty well. For the sources on the input, you can do either XLR or USB. Again, very nice to have the ability for both. You can also adjust the microphone gain along with the headphone monitoring on the bottom of the mic via the physical knobs, and you can also plug your headphones into the jack on the bottom of the mic to hear yourself while you are speaking. Aya, ba, ka, dia, iya. Everything is pretty nicely packaged, and setting everything up is also fairly easy. So plugging them directly into my computer via USB, it's instantly recognized and ready to go. Right away, I was also interested in hearing how this sounded compared to my current microphone. I've been so familiar with how I heard my voice coming from the Wave 3, which is a condenser microphone, so here is what both of these mics sound like compared to each other. This is me speaking into the Fifine microphone. I am currently losing my mind. This is me speaking into the Elgato microphone. I am currently losing my mind. Now obviously, it's not necessarily a one-to-one comparison, but I think it should help by showing the difference between a dynamic and a condenser microphone in a less than ideal setup scenario. And for this being a budget mic, it does a really good job overall with the sound and tone of my voice since it's a pretty neutral sounding mic. I did not have any issues with getting my voice to sound clean and clear for practically anything, so I would say that the vocal capability of this mic is really good. The microphone's overall build quality is also pretty solid given the price, with just a few things I would like to mention. The actual mic itself is made up of metal and has this smooth sort of anodized coating on it, which does feel nice to the touch and would seem to be somewhat more resilient to scratching. But of course, this would also mean that it collects fingerprints and smudges very quickly. However, a decent trade-off nonetheless. The shock mount is also made of metal, and the only thing that isn't is the little screw housing, but it's still just a week into use. It seems to be okay thus far. I also want to mention that if you decide to remove the shock mount from the mic, expect to spend 10 to 15 minutes getting this back on, as I found it to be somewhat difficult until I actually figured it out. I'm not really sure if this has something to do with the mounting on this mic alone, or if all shock mounts are a similar kind of challenge, but I wasn't expecting this when I first took it off, and yeah, definitely leave it on if you prefer to not have to deal with that. The included filter on the mic also seems to be of a nice quality and is somewhat soft to the touch. I think it does a good job at blocking out a good amount of unwanted noise. As for my testing, it definitely seemed to make a difference. There is also tap to mute, which is nice considering the Wave 3 I'm coming from also had this, and I had gotten so used to just being able to quickly mute whenever I needed to, so it's nice to not have to drop this. I never really thought about it until I started using this mic, but coming from the Wave 3, I constantly had to readjust my gain each time the mic got unplugged or my PC restarted, which didn't seem to be a big deal at first, but over time, it started to get pretty annoying. However, for this mic, you can just set the gain via the knob that is a separate function alone and has its own analog control instead of having it be digital on the mic, so it's always set no matter what, and I haven't had to readjust the gain since, so it's been really nice to not have to spend 10 seconds each time messing with that. Another thing that I can appreciate is that from just my little teardown on this mic itself, it seems that you could practically take a lot of the mic apart, which is a massive plus since it would allow you to potentially replace any one piece if you ever needed to. But I will say I'm not totally familiar with Fifine's support, but I do see a lot of people saying great things about them, so there is that. And overall, I am pretty content with the build and quality of this mic considering the price, as there is a lot here that does remain to be seen, but there is also a lot of things that are pretty nice additions, all things considered. And so overall, I would say that I have been pretty satisfied with the mic after using it this past week, and considering it holds its own in terms of performance and capability, even well into the $100 price range, it makes it a much stronger option for someone that is simply on a budget or just getting started and does not really want to drop hundreds of dollars on extra gear. I will honestly more than likely continue using this mic since it's really nice to have clean audio without having to min-max my setup and positioning of the microphone itself when I am speaking. Although the Wave 3 itself is also a solid microphone that has its own use cases.
Now, go get an ace, my good jet.
And yeah, hopefully this doesn't come off as a comparison video between these two mics, as I'm more so just speaking from my own experience since this is pretty much all that I have used thus far. Still, however, this past week with just using the K688, it definitely seems to be holding up to all of the solid reviews said about it. But given that the price is just $70 for this mic, I really don't think you could find a better value. And if I was just getting started and had to consider a microphone for my setup, I would consider the Fifine K688 as simply one of the best choices you could make, especially if you're on a budget. But yeah, anyway, see you later.